Hey writers, it's Renee with the Lyrical Language Lab, the place for writers to go who want to learn about meter, rhyme, and lyrical language. So this is another peek and critique quick and dirty session. It so happens that quite often I am sent a piece, a snippet from a rhyming picture book or prose or whatever it is that I really don't have much to say about because it's really beautiful. And I think it's important to share those as well so that we can look at what's working. It's not always, we don't just learn from looking at what's not working. Reading beautiful things is just going to help us get better in our own writing. So I have one of those today. And this piece was sent in by Lori, and thank you for sending this in and allowing me to use your work. I'm just going to give this a read and then go through and see what's so good about it, okay? It's called Anita Alexa's Painted Desert. Anita Alexa awoke with a plan. She'd paint her room lavender, orange, and tan. Broad strokes of turquoise, bright as a stone, cactus her guide as she journeyed alone. Anita Alexa would follow the trail through monolith arches and clay-colored shale. Towering dwellings of red rock and sand where ancients once thrived and revered the land. She ambled through canyons, crooked and forged, cerulean rivers that coursed through the gorge. Prancing by shadows that stretched toward the east, mule deer and coyotes continued to feast. She shouted her name to the indigo sky. It echoed and bellowed a welcome reply. Howoo was the sound far across the terrain, from the wolf pups who summoned a howling refrain. On wings of a falcon she soared overhead, grasping its feathers of purplish red. She circled the mesa beyond the plateau where rattlesnakes slithered and scrambled below. This is some really beautiful writing right here. Once again, we have an anapestic meter. I try to, mix it up a little, but anapests are really popular. So, we have more anapestic work going on here. That's great. And it is super consistent. It is, tetrameter. Anita Alexa awoke with a plan. It's tetrameter. There are maybe 2 or 3 spots that have slight variations. And because there are only 2 or 3 spots, it works great. I have nothing at all to say about the meter in this piece. It's beautiful. Let me go through and just point out a few things. So, Anita Alexa awoke with a plan. Right off the bat, we've got our character and, okay, what's the plan? All right, and she goes right in, and what is she doing? This is a girl who's painting her room. Lavender, orange, and tan. I was also happy to see orange in there, which does not have a rhyme, but at least it's in there in a rhyming book, so a hand for orange, our much neglected orange. Broad strokes of turquoise, bright as a stone. She's got first of all, the imagery is besides the perfect meter, the imagery is what really struck me about this piece. And of course, we create imagery. Every stanza needs to create some sort of picture in your reader's head. And Lori has done a bang-up job with that because every single stanza is just a new section that Anita Alexa is painting, and it gives me a new image. Something I can really, a tangible picture creates itself in my brain. So I know that she's using all these beautiful colors. I love the broad strokes of turquoise, bright as a stone. We've got a simile in there. I'm not really sure about the simile, bright as a stone. I don't normally think of stones as being bright. A precious stone, yes, but just like a regular run-of-the-mill stone, not so much. So that one image, that one simile was a little bit confusing to me. Cactus her guide as she journeyed alone. So I'm picturing that she is the one creating also the cactus along this trail that she's painting. Anita Alexa, and I love the name as well, and it's great for anapestic meter. This is one little pitfall that happens, is that people write an anapestic meter or whatever meter they choose, but their characters might have a name that really just doesn't fit very well, and it's hard to smash it in there. Anita Alexa is working just beautifully everywhere it comes up. Anita Alexa would follow the trail. So I've got this picture where I just picture this girl just looking sort of at the wall with a paintbrush in her hand, thinking, now what can go there? What's going to happen next? What's going to appear in my beautiful painted desert? through monolith arches and clay-colored shale. I love all the plays of color in this whole thing. I mean, it's a painted desert, so we've got to have color imagery. Towering dwellings of red rock and sand where ancients once thrived and revered the land. This is just a lovely touch, and it gives, I can imagine the illustrations for this book giving us sort of like a, a dream bubble or whatever of the ancients who once lived in these towering dwellings that are left there for the rest of us to enjoy however many years later, and revered the land. Just a lovely, nice touch, because Anita Alexa's also revering the land that she's painting in her room. She ambled through canyons. So now she's really just entered. She's no longer just staring at the wall with the paintbrush. She's actually entered into it. And I love that. And that's a really great image. And Lori achieves this by using amazing diction. Great word choice all the way through. She ambled through canyons. She is taking her time. Crooked and forged. Now this is interesting because I always say no inversion. We would normally say she ambled through crooked and forged canyons, right? I don't even care. I don't even care because it's so poetic. She ambled through canyons, crooked and forged. This is not just a rhyming picture book. This is actually really poetic, which you don't always get. I would call this a poem picture book because of all the imagery that's happening here. And yeah, it's poetry. And so, even in poetry, we don't really want the inversions, but I just think it works in this case. So somebody might disagree with me, some editor somewhere, and that's fine because I'm sure Lori could fix it up if she had to, but I don't have any problem with it right now. Cerulean rivers. These are not blue rivers. They're not murky rivers. They're just cerulean. I mean, what a beautiful color that is. Image that coursed through the gorge. Coursed through the gorge. Besides the diction of coursed, we've also got the assonance of those or the long O, O-R sound. Coursed, gorge. So that's, and before that we had forged, of course, because she's writing in couplets. So we've got all sorts of great stuff and sound going on here. And then we have crooked and coursed. So we have the k-k sound, one in one line and one in the next line is just working. Prancing by shadows, prancing. Good word, right? That we're talking about mule deer and coyotes, and they're prancing. So I picture these animals kind of playing in this silhouette in the sunset or whatever. And then they're feasting. So, we've got this wildlife happening as well. And the stretching of the shadows as well is a lovely image. This is my favorite line. She shouted her name to the indigo sky. I mean, this girl is really in it now. That is just an image of someone who is in love with the beauty around her. It echoed and bellowed, a welcome reply. You hear that sound? Echoed, bellowed. Hau was the sound far across the terrain. And we've got sound, summoned, the howling, sound, howling. So she's playing a lot, not so much with alliteration. There is definitely a lot of alliteration, but more with the sound. And so, more with the assonance, which is, the repetition of vowel sounds within a word rather than first consonant sounds like canyons and coursed. And I really love assonance because whereas alliteration to me feels more playful, when you start playing with those vowel sounds, you can really create mood. And I am totally in the mood of this. There's just this languidness with those long O's going on, and just I'm in the story. I'm absolutely have entered into this with Anita Alexa. On wings of a falcon, and now we're flying. So what else do you want? On wings of a falcon, she soared overhead. And again, even across stanzas, we've got the sound happening. Before we have coursed, then there's sound, soared. It's all these wonderful overhead, soared overhead. Again, she's really pushing on those long O's. Grasping its feathers of purplish red. So she's holding on. And again, what a great color. It's purplish red. It's so specific. And as you know, I've mentioned many times, being specific is what makes great images. It's purplish red, and that is a very specific image. I can picture these feathers. She circled the mesa beyond the plateau, where rattlesnakes slithered and scrambled below. All of those S sounds, of course, with the rattlesnake line. Great sound. Every single verb in this piece is strong. There's not a weak moment as far as diction goes. I mentioned earlier that there's a couple of little tiny variations. One is right here at broad strokes. She'd paint her room lavender, orange, and tan. Broad strokes of turquoise. Broad strokes of turquoise. That kind of, gives me a little bit of a pause, but I think it works. And the other one I think was down here, where ancients once thrived and revered the land. If we really look at that, we have where ancients once thrived and revered the land. As you can see, we've got one missing unstressed beat there. Totally works. No problem. And why it works is because everything else is so consistent and lovely. So I have absolutely nothing else on this except to say thank you for sending it in. It was a beautiful example of imagery, sound, meter, rhyme, and diction all working together to create gorgeous images that I can picture one stanza after the next, and in a wonderful progression that pulls me in with even more with every single stanza. So I love it. I love it. So anyways, that is it for today's Quick and Dirty. If you want to submit something to Peek and Critique, there you'll find a link to do that below in the description. If you haven't subscribed, you might want to do that by clicking the little button and then the little bell so you don't miss any good stuff. And that's it. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.